to continue this conversation, I'm excited to bring into the discussion D. Allsop in our virtual studio. He's the principal and founder for Heart and Mind Strategies. D., welcome to Defending Ideas.
Great to be here, Nick.
And also joining us in the studio, Bill Duncan, Sutherland's Constitutional Law and Religious Freedom Fellow. Bill, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm grateful to both of you because in the first segment, we got a great overview from Sam Abrams about this new report, which again, we'll include a link to in the show notes. It's called Talking About Religion in a Secular Age, How Religious Nuns Perceive the Value of Religion. And again, nuns, for those just listening, is N-O-N-E-S, meaning those who do not identify with any particular religious affiliation. And what are we to make sense of these trends? And so to continue the conversation, Dee and Bill, I want to ask both of you, and maybe Dee, we'll start with you. I want to know what you think. What do these findings say about the state of religion today? You know, there's a lot of discussion about declining religiosity, and there are folks who are concerned about that as far as what its effect is on society. So when you look at this survey data, what's just broadly the kind of things that stand out to you for what matters for how we view society and the state of religion today?
Well, thanks, Nick. In my mind, this particular study kind of addresses three really clear kind of places where America is. First, we're very divided about whether or not religion is good or bad for our society. I'm a little over a majority, but mostly we're kind of split on that. Nevertheless, there's really wide support, supermajority saying religious freedom, nevertheless, is important and good for our society. And there's a recognition that there's a lot of good things that society does or that religion does for our society, widespread agreement about that. And the other thing that this study does is that when we give information about the specific things that religious institutions are doing in our society, it actually will change quite significantly that starting question about whether or not religion is good or bad. So when people become informed about the specific things that religious institutions are doing, they actually become much more positive that religion is good for society.
Bill, I want to draw on what Dee just said, sort of this question of, is religion good for society? And get your take on that. I mean, I guess I think someone asked me once, or it came up in conversation, if I were giving advice to younger folks about what to do to have a good life, I'd say, well, finish your education, get a job, get married, have kids, go to church, invest in those civic institutions around you as key parts of your life, and you will most likely be happier and more successful than you would had you not done any of those things. And so I guess I'm kind of coming at this with this bias, if you will, of course religion is good for society, but what do you say? What does the evidence say? And especially for people who maybe are not congregants, either they never were or they are no longer, for folks, whether they believe in a theology or not, how do we talk to them about answering that question? Is religion good for society?
Yeah, that's such a thoughtful question. And it's interesting because I think the framers of the Constitution had the same perception you described, and that is that religion is just inherently good. I mean, they didn't mention it as a subset of some other right. The right to exercise your religion was a standalone right because they recognized that. Part of the challenge, I think, though, is that as something is understood kind of inherently valuable over time, we sometimes lose our ability to articulate, well, why is it valuable? I mean, this is true across a whole range of things. And now I think when almost everything now is in question, we're sort of being forced to think about its value again. So for the framers and for many people of faith, they would say religion is inherently valuable because it's the way that I communicate with God. It's the way that it shapes, everything about me. I think if I was not a religious person and I was trying to think, well, gosh, maybe that's just kind of like a hobby or a fringe topic for other people. What I would want to look at is what it does for the communities where people of faith are engaged. And the evidence is pretty compelling that it does lots of good things. It encourages people to participate more in their communities, not just with others of their same faith, but with everyone. Civic involvement, charitable giving, it allows people to gather together in more effective ways to provide social services, and it motivates people to work for change in society that is positive. Again, not just for those who are religious themselves, but for everyone. And we have some examples, of course, in the report and in other reports we've written on this, and maybe we'll come back and talk about some specific examples. But I think that's part of the answer. For George Washington, he would say that religion provides something essential for government, but which government itself can't provide, and that is sort of that a kind of a call to integrity, to live true to the, principles like honesty and care for others. So I think that's kind of, we're kind of coming back to the wisdom of the framers in a lot of ways.
Dee, when you think about this growing group, and the report says that it's grown significantly, this demographic that when asked what their religious affiliation or religious preference is, we typically have kind of the standard categories that groups like Pew Research and others have surveyed for a long time. But I think we typically, and this is something Sam said earlier and the report alludes to, we typically think of it as folks who are religious and, Christian, Muslim, various sects of Christianity or any kind of other faith tradition. And then the non-religious category is typically thought of as agnostic or atheist or something like that. But this other category of none or nothing in particular, it's kind of a new thing. And looking at the data in the report, that even just in the last 3 or 4 decades, it's grown from somewhere around 7% to 28%. I mean, it's extremely fast as far as its expansion. What do you make of that, and why is it important for us to understand that group?
That's a really good point. Over my lifetime, it's gone from almost zero, near zero, to now about almost 30%, just under 30%, who are not affiliated with any religious group. That's a sizable group. That's larger than most religious traditions in the country. But just like we look and study a lot about the different types of faith traditions, and as you talked about them, there's a lot of Christian, non-Christian, Jewish types of different religious traditions. Nuns are not all alike either. There's some very different types of groups there, and they act differently. Some are nuns because they just never had an interest. Some are because they had a bad experience and they got negative toward it. Some are just doing so good in life they don't need God. So there's a whole variety of different types of nuns out there, and they have different feelings about God. And there's even a group of them who just are not close to God, but they want to get back close to God. So you have to think of them as very individual types of people, each on their own kind of journey in this relationship with God and with religious institutions.
One thing I'd love to get your take on as well is again, sort of approaching this from sort of if I'm approaching this from kind of the non-academic standpoint, if I'm just a guy out there who's hearing this and thinking, well, if I want a strong, vibrant, healthy society, I want more people in the pews, so to speak, not less. I want more people sort of acting motivated by a sense of a responsibility to the divine and to each other, and all the ways that Bill has talked about and written about, where it motivates us to serve one another, to act differently in really powerful ways. So I would think of it as, well, I want more people to be religious in the United States. I want more people to have a strong connection with faith and faith institutions. Is that wrong, I guess, in 2026 to say? Or is there anything about this data that can help if I say, well, that's a goal. I want faith to have a strong role in public life and in all of our personal lives. What from this data should I extrapolate to help either to refine or improve or operationalize that viewpoint?
Again, good question. In my mind, I kind of look at it slightly different. There's this idea of religious conversion, which is this personal spiritual change of heart where you become affiliated not just in your actions, but in your soul to a faith orientation belief. But there's another large group, which I think is just equally important, who aren't necessarily going to be about a spiritual or religious conversion, but a recognition that's really explicit of why, even though I'm not a believer, I recognize that believers and religion and faith make important contributions to our society and need to be protected. And in my mind, this study really is about that second group. There's a lot of things that, even though you're not a believer or right now, or maybe not in your near future, there's still reasons why it's really important to recognize and support what religions and faith groups do in our communities. And there's a lot of data here that just shows a lot of that is just making it more clear, just more explicitly. What are the number of things they're doing in terms of hospital beds, in terms of education, in terms of the careers created at religious institutions, making the people in religious institution college are more likely to go into careers that help others. So what are those concrete benefits that I, as a non-believer, say, wow, that's helping my society, my community? Just as you make those things more known to people, they are far more likely to be supporting the role of faith in their community.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.